Donald Trump does not give a damn about leaving a comrade or so many comrades behind. Every moment that Donald Trump leaves our heroes mired in the muck of this illegal war of choice in Iran, he is showing that he cares more about saving his own face than leading our troops. Only someone as inept and unfit, someone as callous and cruel as Trump would see this as winning. Only a draft-dodging coward would think that this is the right way to engage in a war. Only a man so unqualified to be commander-in-chief would be proud to keep on risking our heroes' lives without even a concept of a plan for how to get them back home without risking more graves at Arlington. So my question is, if any of my Republican colleagues are actually brave enough to stand up and tell Donald J. Trump, the 5-time draft-dodging coward, enough.
That was Senator Tammy Duckworth, a double amputee combat veteran and a Iraq war survivor. She watched comrades perish in an entirely avoidable conflict, yet while American blood remains wet on foreign soil, the man occupying the White House busies himself with his greatest passion, polishing his own reflection. Zero strategy, zero accountability. It is merely another theatrical performance where other people's children pay the ultimate price so he can harvest cheap applause. He sits enthroned, a counterfeit king who never once hoisted a rifle, never clawed a foxhole into the dirt, never penned a devastating letter to a weeping mother. Instead, he barks commands as though modern warfare were merely the newest season of his private reality show, a script he casually rewrites with a single boastful tweet. Let me tell you, we've won. You never like to say it too early, but we won. In the first hour, it was over. It is nauseating. A coward who spent his entire privileged existence dodging every conceivable hardship now demands the ultimate, bloodiest sacrifice from everyone else. And the most sickening tragedy? He demands we worship this cowardice as strength. You can feel it in your bones, can't you? That visceral, sickening disconnect. The yawning chasm between the patriots who actually bleed and the charlatan who merely poses. Stay with me, because what comes next will show how deep that disconnect goes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've come to the floor today as a United States Senator, of course, but also as a former soldier who served in uniform the last time a president rashly sent our men and women into an unjustified war in the Middle East. I spent nearly a year at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, recovering from the injuries I earned in Iraq. And every morning, as I struggled to sit up straight, every time I was rolled into yet another surgery, I made sure to read the poster I had next to my hospital bed. It was a framed copy of the Soldier's Creed, the words that those lucky enough to wear the Army uniform live by. That same framed copy now hangs by my desk here in DC. And as I glanced at it this morning, I realized that there's perhaps no greater proof that Donald Trump never deigned to serve a day in his life than the mockery he makes of the Soldier's Creed's commitments every single day he has been in office. The creed may be associated with the Army, but the sentiments hold true for all of those who wear the uniform of this great nation. Its 13 lines tells us to be disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained, proficient, and to look out for those who look out for us, to look out for one another. Donald Trump is supposed to be our service members' commander-in-chief. The very least we should expect of him is to epitomize the standards that we ask our troops to swear by, to live by. The very least we should expect of the commander-in-chief is to be as competent, disciplined, and professional as the men and women whose very lives hinge on his capacity to lead, on that competence and professionalism we expect to see in the White House. The Creed makes clear that our troops will never quit, that they will never leave a fallen comrade behind, yet Cadet Bone Spurs is someone who will always quit. And every hour he orders our service members to remain in unnecessary growing danger, he is proving that Donald Trump does not give a damn about leaving a comrade or so many comrades behind. Every moment that Donald Trump leaves our heroes mired in the muck of this illegal war of choice in Iran, he is showing that he cares more about saving his own face than leading our troops. So I come to the floor today with a simple question. Our military men and women go out there every day and do their jobs, no matter the risk, all on Donald Trump's orders. So I ask you, Mr. President, why the hell can't you do your job too? Why can't you live up to the same level of proficiency as our troops?
Cadet Bone Spurs is a coward who will always quit. With every passing hour, he orders our troops to languish in escalating, unnecessary danger. Donald Trump proves he doesn't give a damn about leaving countless comrades behind. Every agonizing moment he keeps our heroes bogged down in the lethal muck of this illegal war of choice in Iran, he signals that saving his own fragile ego matters infinitely more than leading our troops. So I come to the Senate floor today with one simple question. Our servicemen and women step into the line of fire every single day, executing their duty regardless of the ultimate risk, entirely on Donald Trump's command. So I ask you, Mr. President, why the hell can't you do your job too? Why can't you demonstrate a fraction of the proficiency our troops show daily? Cadet Bone Spurs. That nickname was earned. While others bled in Vietnam, Trump collected 5 draft deferments. The final 1968 deferment claimed Bone Spurs so suspiciously vague, he couldn't later recall which foot was afflicted. Meanwhile, the woman speaking on this floor spent a grueling year at Walter Reed, merely relearning how to sit upright after a hostile RPG shredded her Black Hawk helicopter over Iraq. She left both of her legs buried in foreign sand. He sacrificed absolutely nothing. That stark contrast drives this entire moment. A decorated combat veteran who actually bled for our flag is forced to explain basic patriotic duty to the man gripping the nuclear codes. A man who hasn't lived a single day of real service. While American soldiers die executing his orders, Trump shamelessly burns political capital on a lavish new White House ballroom, already dubbed the Marie Antoinette Ballroom. He does this while brazenly demanding over $200 billion in emergency war funds, piled upon the $856 billion already handed to the Pentagon. Hear his grotesque defense. We are building a tremendous military facility at the White House. It is a ballroom, but it is also a drone port on top. No physical scars, no devastating letters sent to grieving mothers. He has zero skin in the game. It is just an endless, hollow performance of machismo from a man who spent his whole privileged life dodging reality, yet still demands a unified national salute. Stay with me. What comes next exposes exactly how deep that disconnect runs.
But Trump either doesn't understand or he simply doesn't care about that. From the moment this conflict began, the president has tried to shroud his incompetence behind the valor of our service members. When asked to justify his illegal actions, Donald Trump tried to hide his cowardice behind our heroes' courage. He's tried to act as if questioning why we're at war is the same as questioning the skill and bravery of our troops themselves. It isn't. And I'm here to call bullshit on the President of the United States, because I know that our military will always do the best job possible. When given a mission, our service members will say, yes, I will serve. They don't say, why me? They don't ask, will I be safe? No. They dust off their boots, they show up, and they do what's asked of them to the best of their ability every single time after time, tour after tour, no matter the risk, no matter the sacrifice. They will always, always execute their orders to the maximum capability of their professionalism, and they are proud to do it. That isn't the problem. The problem here is that the person who's supposed to be leading them spends more time talking about his Marie Antoinette ballroom than he does sitting in the Situation Room trying to get us out of this war. The problem is the guy who claims to be making America great again looks at the word America and only sees the letters M and E in the middle of it. The problem is that the commander-in-chief not only has no idea what the end state is like for his war of choice, but properly doesn't even know what the term end state means at all. The problem is that even in the last 2 weeks, the man who is in charge of our nation's nuclear codes has himself gone increasingly nuclear. He's not believing literal war with Iran is enough. He's now gone on to proverbial war with the Vatican, choosing to pick fights with the Pope of all people, the Pope, rather than try to engage in any semblance of real diplomacy to end the conflict in the Middle East. He's threatened to annihilate an entire civilization, terrifying people overseas and here at home who are understandably worried about retaliatory strikes. And now, after one half-assed day of so-called negotiations with Iran, he's whipsawed to the next risky frontier in the region, a dangerous, complex, partial military blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, launching it at our nation's expense with no justification, no explanation, or any real plan of what comes next. His only plan seems to rely on the valor, the willingness to sacrifice, the professionalism of our military men and women. But let me tell you, that is not enough. They need a true commander. But Trump is Trump, and he is actively, unabashedly telling us how to ignore what we are all seeing with our own eyes. He's trying to declare mission accomplished despite his obvious failures at every single turn. He's declaring, and I quote, "We did it, we're winning," after all signs point to the opposite. We're still at war. Americans are still at risk. Civilians across the region are still dying for no reason that anyone can truly articulate. In reality, the only thing that Donald Trump has accomplished over the last 6 weeks is more chaos. Because of his choices, a new younger Ayatollah is in charge who seems even more radical than his father was. 13 American heroes have been killed, with hundreds more wounded. More Gold Star parents are grieving their children. And more American families are struggling to afford the spiking gas prices. They're unsure if they can pay even more every time they go to the gas station. But they have to, because they need to get to work. They've got to take their kids to school. They've got to take their aging parents to the doctor. The farmers of Illinois, the farmers of this great nation, have seen at the time that we should be planting their input costs skyrocket because of Donald Trump's war of choice. Look, war is always tragic, but when it's preventable, when it's unjustified, it's not just tragic, it's a travesty.
Let's pause and sit with that for 1 second. Right in the middle of a blazing war, while American combat pilots are literally being blown out of the sky, Donald Trump somehow found the free time to pick a fight with the Pope. This was not a quiet disagreement. It was a full, catastrophic war with the Vatican, undermining the very diplomacy the Holy See was attempting to broker. That is exactly how unhinged and thoroughly detached this presidency has truly become. He dismissed it, rambling, "Yeah, I'm fine with it." That statement brought them to the table. I believe they're going to give up pretty soon, because it's not going to work. But there is a far darker thread slithering underneath all of this. An early March 2026 national survey of 1,972 likely voters revealed that 52% of Americans believe Trump launched strikes on Iran merely as a desperate distraction from the Epstein files. This is not some fringe internet conspiracy. Republican Congressman Thomas Massie, a driving force behind the Epstein Files Transparency Act, said the quiet part entirely out loud. Bombing a nation on the opposite side of the globe will not magically make the Epstein files disappear. Meanwhile, a viable June ceasefire memorandum with Iran was already drafted. A clear, peaceful off-ramp existed. Trump recklessly abandoned it, abruptly declared negotiations over, and ordered new strikes over the Strait of Hormuz with absolutely zero strategy for what happens tomorrow. He called this bloodbath a mere skirmish, boasting about hitting them hard while refusing a deal. The cost of this arrogance? 13 Americans are dead. Hundreds more lie wounded. A deeply radical leadership now aggressively consolidates power in Tehran. Gas prices are surging uncontrollably. Desperate American farmers watch their critical input costs violently explode during peak planting season. Yet the man solely responsible for this disaster still dares to call it winning. This is the grim reality when a lifelong reality showman treats human slaughter like cheap television content he can quickly rewrite in real time. Other people's children pay the bloody bill, and he arrogantly absorbs the applause. The woman who left both her legs in Iraq is not finished. What she says next cuts even deeper.
Trump wouldn't let himself be dragged in by the bone spurs to serve in Vietnam. So how dare he drag our nation into a war of his choice today? But this draft dodger, this 5-time draft dodger, is too infatuated with maximum pressure to make a serious effort at even minimum diplomacy. Once again, the Trump foreign policy doctrine has proven reckless, senseless, and dangerous. A doctrine in which fact and fiction are one and the same, one in which our commander-in-chief seems to come to military decisions by virtue of temper tantrums and announces them via tweet in the middle of the night, and one in which avarice outweighs advice every single time. Look, unlike Trump, I actually know what it's like to leave your blood soaking into the desert sand a half a world away. So I know what it's like. I know what it's like and what is at stake for the troops this administration is sending into harm's way. We must safeguard their valor and their professionalism by doing our jobs. I can tell you this, it's a whole lot easier to cover your eyes and order other Americans to sacrifice their children and sacrifice themselves if you don't have to do any of the sacrificing yourself. It's easier to send other people's children to fight in a war if you know your own children are cozy in a penthouse suite somewhere. It's easier to ignore the everyday realities of war from inside the hallowed halls of the White House, where you've got McDonald's being door dashed to the Oval Office. But it's nearly impossible. It's nearly impossible if you've been actually outside the wire yourself. So I've come to the floor today to keep true a promise I first made over 2 decades ago. I ran for Congress, not because I wanted to be in Congress, not because I wanted to be a congressman or a senator. I ran for Congress to honor the men and women who carried me out of that bloody war zone. I made a promise that when the drums of war started beating again, I would be in a position to make sure that our elected officials fully consider the true cause of war, not just in terms of money, but in human lives and in the sacrifices of the men and women who wear the colors of this great nation. That was the vow I made to the troops I deployed with and to all of those who've served since I've hung up my uniform.
She poured her own blood into the desert sand. He left nothing behind except a trail of pathetic excuses. That is the fundamental difference no PR spin can ever erase. One leader intimately understands the crushing cost of deploying young Americans into harm's way because she has lived that agony. The other barks lethal commands from a secured room where McDonald's is delivered by DoorDash, while his own offspring remains safely insulated from danger. Contrast that grotesque image with the grim reality of flag-draped coffins touching down at Dover Air Force Base. It is always easier to ignite wars when you have never had to face their brutal end. Easier to demand ultimate sacrifice once you have spent a lifetime dodging it. Easier to treat other people's children as expendable fodder when yours never have to board a transport plane. Decades ago, Duckworth made a sacred promise to the soldiers who hauled her shattered body out of a war zone. Right now, under the Capitol dome, she is fulfilling that vow in real time, while a phantom commander-in-chief rewrites scripts to protect only himself. What she says next delivers the final blow, and it goes straight for the heart of the Constitution.
I'm here today under this great Capitol dome to keep that most sacred oath, because right now, thousands of our troops are ready to do their jobs, even if it means laying down their lives. And it's tragic, it's disgusting to me that even as they prepare to do their jobs, our president and some members of this chamber seem so eager to neglect their own. So as those drums of war echo louder than they have ever in years, I am here to remind Donald Trump that he does not have the authority to unilaterally force us into war. He may never have read the Constitution, but I have. So let me direct his attention to Article 1, which makes clear that only Congress has the power to declare war. We are the ones tasked with deciding when and how Americans are sent into combat. We are the ones charged with that most solemn duty. Yet Trump is acting as if Article 1 simply doesn't exist, as if obeying the Constitution is optional, as if our founding document is just a yellowing, crumbling piece of paper that he can crumble up and toss into the garbage can at will. This should not, must not be a partisan issue. No matter if you're struggling to pay rent, or if your name is plastered in fake gold on a building on Fifth Avenue, no one can ignore the Constitution, especially if you've sworn an oath to defend it. No matter if you're a Mar-a-Lago worker pulling down double shifts of the President of the United States, No one is above the law. Look, I believe fully that there are certain solemn, urgent times when our military must be called upon to defend us. There are certain moments when the threat in question is significant and imminent, instances when military force is the most effective tool at hand, and that using it is necessary to protect America and her interests. The thing is, from what little information the Trump administration has shared publicly that he hasn't immediately contradicted, and sometimes the same sentence, this was not one of those times. But if the administration thinks that I'm wrong and there was imminent, reasonable, actual threat to America, then guess what? The floor is theirs. Come to the Senate, which is 20 minutes from the White House. It's not hard to find. It's even faster in your motorcade, Mr. President. It's not hard to find us. We're the building with the big dome on top. We're only a 20-minute walk. Trump knows where the Capitol building is. It's a spot he told the insurrectionists to march towards on January 6th. So if his team actually believes that war is unjustified, then they need to come to Congress and do their jobs. Explain their case, giving the American people a say through their elected representatives, the members who sit at every one of these desks in this chamber. They need to respect the American people enough to finally tell them why they're being forced to bear the cost of this conflict, both in dollars and cents and daughters and sons. They need to respect our service members enough to prove why war with Iran is worth more children growing up without their mom or dad. They need to make it clear that they've thought this through and well enough that they can actually articulate what an end state with this war of choice in Iran would even look like. Then, when their case has been made, when the debate here in Congress is completed, then the members of this chamber must vote. It's our duty. Yes, it is our burden. It's the least we can do for those who are willing to sacrifice everything to safeguard this democracy. But if the Trump administration refuses to do that, if they refuse to adhere to the Constitution, well, then it begs the question, what are you hiding? What are you hiding, Mr. President? We already know you're incompetent. What else are you hiding? Look, we've now been at this war of choice, of Trump's choice, for a month and a half. Thousands are dead, grieving, wounded, suffering. Only someone as inept and unfit, someone as callous and cruel as Trump would see this as winning. Only a draft-dodging coward would think that this is the right way to engage in a war. Only a man so unqualified to be commander-in-chief would be proud to keep on risking our heroes' lives without even a concept of a plan for how to get them back home without risking more graves at Arlington. We can't let this chaos continue unchecked. As our troops continue to sacrifice whatever is asked of them, we senators need to do the absolute minimum required of us. That's why this week I'm calling up my War Powers resolution demanding that the Trump administration finally end this illegal war and to call for some actual public oversight and accountability on behalf of the American people. It will come to the floor for a vote shortly. So to my Republican colleagues, you have a choice, a simple one really. You can vote with me to end this conflict and show that you actually care about putting America first, like you claim, or you can vote to put Trump's ego first, proving that when push comes to shove, you care more about protecting Trump's thin skin than the Constitution that you swore to defend. At this point, it's pretty clear. Donald J. Trump will always be more interested in looking out for his own self-interest rather than truly serving American interests. So my question is, if any of my Republican colleagues are actually brave enough to stand up and tell Donald J. Trump, the 5-time draft-dodging coward, enough. Thank you. You have the floor.
There it is. Total exposure. A combat-wounded senator just reminded a stunned nation that Donald Trump possesses zero constitutional authority to drag America into this unjustified war of choice. Article 1 is not optional. The War Powers resolution is not a polite suggestion. And the blood of American troops is not a cheap PR prop. She has forced the resolution onto the floor. The vote is imminent. Every single Republican senator now faces a stark, binary choice: stand firmly with the Constitution and our troops, or kneel beside a five-time draft-dodging coward who cannot even define an endgame and treats human lives as disposable. Duckworth kept the sacred promise she forged on a hospital bed at Walter Reed. Trump has never honored a single promise to the heroes he cynically sends into the crossfire.